one of the things we're asking clients to do all the time is lean into their fear, right? Is to do the opposite. We talk about the paradox, to do the opposite of what their amygdala is telling them. And their amygdala is saying to avoid or to compulse to feel better, and we're really trying to get them to lean into their fear. But just like everything, it's easy to say that to someone, but what does that actually look like? And how do we help our clients do it in a way where they are feeling more and more confident in their ability to handle those feelings? Because we want to increase their ability to tolerate those distressing feelings while they're leaning into it. So, I mean, is there anything that's coming to you about, like, how do you even get started with that? How do you begin to socialize a client to that's the work we're doing, and how they might go about doing that?
Right, and to me, it comes back to recognizing that what they've learned from anxiety is the opposite. What they've learned is avoidance. And that recognizing that if avoidance worked, they wouldn't need to be here seeing me, right? And so instead I say, well, the thing about this is that that's not working. We need to get, because I've done the brain education, so I've talked to them about the role of their amygdala. I say, what we need to do is we need to get your amygdala, the experiential learner, some new information. And to do that, we need to have you step into situations that are anxiety producing for you. Now, we can do that in all kinds of ways. And one of the things that I love about this is I'm really collaborating with my client right from the beginning, and not mandating that they do more than they want, but encouraging them to do more. Because what we know is that the more you lean into things, the more exposures you do, the more practice you do, however you want to frame that, the more your brain learns, oh, I can handle that. So we really wanted, to me, this is one of the great things as a therapist, is finding this with each individual client. What does it mean for that person to lean in? And where are they feeling that they can't do it? And where are they feeling, oh, I see how this is working and I really can lean into that?
And I find that these places come up in our sessions all the time. It might not be a specific exposure on their hierarchy, but let's just say I asked them a question about, how did the test go at school, and they might be like, oh my gosh, I was so worried about it, and just the way they're talking about it, like they lean back and they're like, oh, and I said, if you just even practice doing that differently, right? Like how do you want your amygdala to think about your test experience? And so I said, let's just do a take two. I do take twos all the time. Let's just do take two, and I'm going to ask you the question about, so how did that test go at school? And I want you to give me facts, not fears, and I want you to say it in a way where your amygdala's like, hey, we gave it a good shot. And so they might do it again, and it might sound something more like, yeah, you know what, I studied, I wasn't sure that I studied enough, but I went in and I thought, I'm going to take this test, and I was really proud of myself for showing up, because I didn't want to show up, but I did it anyways, and I feel like I have a little bit better sense of how I need to be working towards taking tests in the future. So notice how different that sounds than that, oh my gosh, it was so hard. So there's all these small places where you can be modeling for a client that many of our anxious clients, I think, live in their life in a way that's kind of always pulling back and having this critical voice, and seeing the negative, which is what they're showing their amygdala, right? And we want them to show their amygdala how they want to experience life.
Absolutely. I love the way you're showing that, because you see how she's physically sort of shrinking in one way, and the other way she's physically sitting up. In one way her voice is kind of trailing off, and she's got a kind of negative or complaining sound to her voice, and in the other she sounds really confident. And we want to tap into all those pieces of what our clients are doing, because how we experience the world is how we're talking to ourselves. It's how we're presenting ourselves to the world, right? And our clients have had the experience of being chased by anxiety to the point where they are withdrawing and pulling away, and they're not even aware that they're doing that. So instead, we're really giving this encouragement to lean in. And I think leaning in takes all different forms for different clients, but it is a crucial skill in doing this kind of work.
Yeah, and I say to my clients, I don't expect you to know how to lean in. You haven't been doing it for a year or 40 years, right? And so I'm just going to show you all kinds of opportunities as we work together on what it might look like. And all of that then is skilling them up to when we start exposures or when they're out in their life, that they might be able to just pause and be like, oh, I did that thing again where I was like this, and I'm going to try instead to say it with more confidence and show my amygdala how I want them to experience it.
And what's so interesting then is what happens when you ask your client how it feels one way versus the other.
Yes.
And what do they say?
Those processing places, right? They're like, oh my gosh, well, first of all, it feels so much better, but it's more, I believe in myself more
Right.
on the second one, right? They feel more confident, they feel more competent, but literally we were talking about the same test. And so, right, how we talk about something changes our experience and also changes our willingness to do something again.
Right.
So those are all points. We got lots more points, but
Leaning in.
yeah.